Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world, and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is October 29th, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1949, Mr. Wonderful, Paul Orndorff. 1982, England's own, Dave Rain. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for October 29th. 2006, the luchador known as Guerrero Negro. Alright, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for October 29th. Jumping in the Wayback Machine and going all the way to 1946, where we see Antonio Cortez defeat the Cardiff Giant for the Florida Heavyweight title. Moving to 1953, Pepper Gomez and Johnny Demchuk win their second Northwest Tag Team titles from Doc Gallagher and Ivan Kamaroff. 2 years later, in 1955, Don McIntyre defeats Fred Blassie in Atlanta, Georgia, to win the Georgia version of the NWA Southern Heavyweight title, beginning his 11th reign and ending Blassie's second. Our final stop in the 50s, 1959. John Smith and Tosh Togo defeat Don and Bobby Fields in a tournament final for the Gulf Coast version of the NWA Southern Tag Team titles in Mobile, Alabama. Grooving into the 60s, 1966. Both World Wrestling Association championships change hands when Hard-Boiled Haggerty and El Sharif defeat Pedro Morales and Luis Hernandez to win the tag titles, and Mark Lewin defeats Lou Thesz for the heavyweight title. Just a year later, in 1967, Rock Rogowski, a.k.a. Ole Anderson, defeats Bob Orton Sr. for the AWA Midwest heavyweight title in Omaha, Nebraska. Grabbing my bell-bottoms and disco ducking it to 1970, Tony Bourne and Moondog Mayne begin their 9th reign as NWA Pacific Northwest Tag Team Champions, after defeating Mr. Fuji and Hira Sasaki, ending their second reign. 2 years later, in 1972, in Detroit, Michigan, Pampero Firpo wins the Detroit version of the NWA United States heavyweight title from Bobo Brazil, ending Brazil's 4th reign and beginning his own second. Another 2-year jump to 1974, Dan Crafat and Wayne Bridges defeat Gene Knitsky and Dutch Savage for the Vancouver version of the NWA Canadian Tag Team titles. Making 2 stops in 1975, first, Killer Carl Cox defeats Dick Murdoch to win the tri-state version of the NWA North American Heavyweight title in Shreveport, Louisiana. Our second stop in 1975, Ken Lucas wins his 6th NWA Alabama Heavyweight title in Mobile, Alabama, defeating Bill Malone. Our final stop in the 70s, 1977, Black Gordman and Goliath win their 14th NWA America's Tag Team titles by defeating Victor Riviera and Texas Red. Grabbing my boombox and going to the 80s, 1981. Robert Fuller and Jose LeDuc defeat Jimmy Golden and the Mongolian Stomper for the NWA Southeastern Tag Team titles in Montgomery, Alabama, to begin their second reign. Moving ahead to 1988, the Cuban Commandos, Jerry Morrow and the Cuban Assassin, defeat Chris Benoit and Lance Idol for the Stampede International Tag Team titles in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And staying in 1988, the Road Warriors defeat the Midnight Express, Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane, for the NWA World Tag Team titles in New Orleans, Louisiana. The Warriors had just turned heel by beating up Sting following a 6-man tag 2 nights earlier. Incredibly, this marked the one and only time Hawk and Animal would hold the NWA World Tag Team titles. Grabbing my flannel and going to the decade of grunge, 1990. Eddie Gilbert defeats Jeff Jarrett for the USWA Southern Heavyweight title in Memphis, Tennessee, ending the first of an eventual 10 reigns with the belt for Jarrett. Moving ahead 3 years to 1993, the Great Susake defeats Battle Ranger Z to become the first FMW Independent World Junior Heavyweight Champion in Tokyo, Japan. A 2-year jump to 1995, WCW held Halloween Havoc at the Joe Louis Arena in Detroit, Michigan, with a main event of the Giant defeating WCW World Heavyweight Champion Hulk Hogan via DQ when the Yeti, dressed as a mummy, came in and helped beat Hogan down. Yes, that show. And just to get the taste out of our mouths, staying in 1995, Tracy Smothers and Jesse James Armstrong defeat PG-13, JC Ice and Wolfie D in Memphis, Tennessee to win the USWA Tag Team titles, ending PG-13's 9th reign. Those were your short but sweet pro wrestling history highlights for October 29th. I'm the Eclectic Gentleman Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.